Call to order the Monday, April 10th, 2023 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. If we could all rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. If we could note the roll.
Bailey?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
Racer? Yes. Magley?
Yes.
There is a quorum.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda, April 10th, 2023, as proposed.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Next item is approval of the minutes for our regular meeting of March 13th, 2023.
I'll move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting, March 13th, 2023, as written.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Here, but
Any discussion on that, or I didn't see errors or issues? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Item number 6, public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if anybody would like to speak about anything that's not on the agenda, now would be that time. Okay. Seeing none, we will move to item 7, new business. Case 23, ZBA 004, Zach Kowalski, 1245 South Lapeer Road, parcel 0435179001. The petitioner is requesting the following variance approvals. Number 1, increase in maximum permitted height of a sign from 6 feet to 42 feet. And number 2, increase in maximum area of an electronic message sign from 50% to 100%. Just to give everybody a little rundown of how this will work, in a second we will ask the applicant to make a statement, go over any information they have to make their reasoning as to why we would consider this. Number 2, we would then open that up for public hearing where members of the public can speak for or against. In that time, it is limited to 3 minutes. You'll need to come to the podium, give your name, and give your reasoning for or against. Number 3, we would take comments and questions from the public. Number 4, we will then close the public hearing. Number 5, building administrator comments. Seeing no one is here tonight. Number 6, board member questions, comments. And then we as a board will go through the finding of facts from Article 17, Section 17.8, variances and standards. Number 8, at that time I would entertain a motion. The board would then discuss, make comments, and finally make a vote for or against the variance. So with that, is the applicant prepared to speak to the board?
good evening. I'm Jim Forrett. I'm here on behalf of Bill, who is here also.
Okay.
Bill is available to answer questions or anything about the details of the signage of use. We've submitted our application in writing, our reasoning. For the most part, I'm satisfied with its contents. Rather than going through all of it, just repeating the same thing they've already given you. I did have a question myself, and I think it is a matter of interpretation about this 50% provision. Because I apparently don't understand what is intended by it. If we're going to say, take the whole sign and limit only 50% of it to digital format, I guess the question becomes what's intended for the other 50%. we put a big arrow on it to say, look at the sign, or welcome to Oxford. I don't quite get the point of it. Frankly, I've not seen a single digital format sign anywhere that seems to follow that format. They all seem to be the whole thing. That's just a matter of curiosity to me. If we want to put something up and limit it, the area to 50% of that whole area, as long as it meets the minimums that we have in terms of our ability to project on that screen. As you know, if you go into Best Buy and try to buy a television, they're all in a certain ratio for their projection. And we're going to have to follow that same format when we're coming up with the sign dimensions and how we can figure the use of the sign in that space. Beyond that, the sign as it stands has stood for many years, and it is a message center, and it's been used for that purpose for many years. I think it's well recognized in the community. Its height is already there. We're not proposing to increase its height, but because the post drops quite a drop from the M24 elevation, we need to maintain that elevation and the height over the top of the surrounding buildings, just so it can be seen. So those are maybe some irregularities about this particular property, but it causes us to need to keep that height up at that elevation. Switching over to the digital conversion from the existing placing of letters up on the board, not only is a safety issue for Bill, who's up there climbing around. I'm not trying to still put those letters on the board, but we think that the conversion makes it a heck of a lot more capable of being useful to the community. And Bill's has already indicated they put a willingness to entertain having community events, given a certain amount of time for use on that board. So I think it's a community benefit, and I think that the variances that we're requesting are reasonable. And I think Bill is here to answer questions about the dimensions, any details that you may have. And I understand you have an opportunity for questions later, but he's here when you want.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go through what you're asking for, dimension, size, because I know I had some questions looking through the packet, so maybe if you want to go through and just kind of lay out what you're looking to do to maybe answer some of those.
Sure. No, I was confused about the 50% rule also. As it stands, the sign is 14 feet by 48 feet. That's the size of one face. 672 square feet. And if you count the addition of the letters going above the board, which is called a cutout, and the apron below it, which is 3 feet by the full size of the board, it comes out to 810 square feet of visible sign area. That would be drastically reduced if it was digital. There's no need for a catwalk. There's no need for an apron. There's no need for cutout letters that go above it. So when originally we drew, I was instructed to ask for the 50%, and I just divided 672 by 50%, and that's what I designed, which is in the packet, 12 by 28. That's how we came out with that size. That's hopefully not the right size, because that doesn't make any standards for, but it is half, it is 50%. Did any of that make sense? I'm hoping I'm not making it more confusing.
So is the billboard staying as the 14 by 48 two-sided sign?
No. It would be reduced to 12 feet by 36 feet. No apron below it, which is 3 feet by 44 feet. That would be gone. Any cutout letters above it and beyond it would be gone. So that would be 432 square feet of signage on each side.
So it will be two-sided?
Yes.
And it's just that sign. because I know you have two of them there.
Correct. That's the only message center we have, yes.
Okay, so the other billboard is staying as it is, no changes, nothing to that?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. So anything else you want to add or information before we move on to the public hearing or public comments?
I think you've got it, I hope. If anything comes up, please ask, because it is confusing, even to me.
Sure, and we'll get to comments and questions, and I'm sure we'll ask you a few throughout the course of this.
You know, I might add, the way it runs right now, there's typically one customer per day. And this customer would stay static throughout the day, and it leaves no chance, well, besides if it's raining, windy, icy, all those things that could happen in life, it should change per day. And it gives no opportunity for emergencies. For example, Amber Alerts, avoid an area for, some reason, if there's a traffic incident. There's all kinds of things that it could be adapted to totally easily and immediately. Boil water alerts could arrive there within seconds, if that was something needed. It's just so more versatile. And this way, changing and hanging letters doesn't make it. Not for that versatility.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Well, with that, let's open up for public hearing. If anybody would like to speak, come up to the podium, state your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes to...
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Evelyn Archer, 750 Lakes Edge Drive. And thank you for serving. And I have rented the community message board in the past from Mr. Radskalowski. And so nothing against him. But I do hope that you'll turn down the variance request about the sign for the following reasons. Number one, I think that it's these are very large variances that are requested in terms of, an additional 36 feet high as far as the sign, and then doubling the area of the sign. I didn't quite get what Mr. Ratzko was saying, or your attorney was just saying, in regards to the sign area changing, but as is right now, from what I understand from the application, these are huge variances, and I think that it would be very distracting to drivers if we turned it into, or Mr. Rasko had an electronic messaging sign. We already have cell phone driver distractions, which, by the way, the cell phones already give us alerts, social media messages, emergency alerts, traffic condition alerts. So I think that's kind of a moot point. It's such an accident-prone intersection right near the sign. So M24 and Drainer, we know that we've had the Shell station taken out, and there have been deaths at that intersection. Northbound drivers speed up, they want to make the light. Southbound drivers accelerate after the red light, and we have 30,000 to 40,000 cars traverse that area daily, and that's according to SEMCOG and Census Stats and Michigan State Police. As far as the unique circumstances of the area, the sign would not be in proportion in terms of the height as well as the area of the sign, as proposed by Mr. Ratzko. And it would look awful aesthetically, I would think, but one could say that every area has unique circumstances, and I'm just wondering if we really need to have a higher visibility sign. What precedent does it set for the next sign? And I know that as is right now, Mr. Ratzko said that, the other sign would stay the same, but things change. Nextly, do we really want a Vegas or a Detroit atmosphere here in our small family-friendly town? I'm not sure we do. And the highways have an abundance of EMS signs. We don't really want one as a gateway to both Oxford and Lake Orion, north-southbound. We don't have to worry, the next point I'd like to make, there's an injustice to potential renters because as we know, costs of electricity are going way, way up. And of course, those costs would be passed on to us who rent the sign. Plus, there's an injustice, if this is approved, to other conforming businesses that have signs in Oxford. And so I also think that we don't need to draw business here. I think we need to support the businesses that we have, and that's what the Community Message Board actually does. And in terms of the economic development coming with the announcement of GM's EV truck plan addition, $3 to $4 billion, as well as Magna, a huge increase that they're planning as far as investment. I think that we need to consider the more smaller town family-friendly homeowners and draw new homeowners to our community. I could go on, but anyway, I'm really upset about the change in the ordinance as well. I know that the board has worked hard on the ordinance, and I know there's a request to change it in terms of height and timing of the business that the sign would be in operation. Thank you for listening. I could go on. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
David McCord, 1305 Glass Lake Circle, Oxford. Before I begin, I have two questions concerning the sign.
Those will be addressed up this way, sir.
Okay. Is it for southbound only?
My understanding is it's two-sided.
It's both sides.
Yes.
Okay. And then he said that the sign would only change once daily. Is that correct, or will it change every few seconds?
The current sign changes daily.
What will the new sign do?
It would be on a timer, and it would be a rotation.
Okay. I'm not against the sign per se, but let me tell you about an experience we had. We moved here from central Pennsylvania 2.5 years ago. A little town right dead center that's on US Highway 15, which is a major north-south highway, 4 lanes, very much like 24. And to the south of us, they put up one of these big signs, that electronics, and it changes probably every 15 seconds. And it's right in a curve, very much like where you're going to put this sign. The real problem becomes is when it changes from one advertisement to another, especially if the previous advertisement is a darker color and then the new advertisement is really bright, whites and reds and so on. And it is so distracting when you're driving, that sudden change, and it catches your eye. It's human nature to look at that sign and you're not looking at the road, and it's this on US 15, it's a 4-lane. There's no barriers between the lanes, and you get distracted, you look at that sign, and you drift. And when they put that sign in, they wound up with lots of, a couple of serious ones, but it was mostly fender benders. But they eventually had to change the signage so that there was not such a large difference between one advertisement and the next, simply because of that distraction. So I'm not against the sign per se, but I am against large changes in the lighting. And when it snowed, it was like a fog on the road because of all the light coming off of that sign, and just made it like a pink and red whiteout because it's so bright. Anyway, that's all I had to say. I would hope you would consider that when you make the regulations concerning this.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ron Petrowski. I live at 750 Lakes Edge Drive. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to make my comments and my mind known. Before I continue, I just want to say that it's my understanding that in the zoning board's own variance analysis dated March 22nd of this year, it reads specifically that the building department has denied permits to replace or update the structure as a billboard twice before, once in 2021, once in 2022. With that fact in mind, one has to ask oneself, how many times does a petitioner who's requesting changes have to be told no before they in fact accept no as an answer? Is it 2? Is it 4? Is it 7? I don't know. My real concern in regards to the sign has to do with the size and the bright lights. Gentleman just very clearly indicated problems that arose in the community that he was in prior to Oxford. My concern is really in regard to the inevitable, unforeseen, and unexpected consequences that any variance of the sign may cause. An example is traffic lights at an intersection. We all know those, and we know them well. We've been using them for years. However, the people that design those things, and they work quite well, I don't think they ever anticipated that people would have accidents below those lights, and that people would actually lose their life in accidents at those intersections. So, again, with that in mind, you, the board, I don't have to tell you how much time and money and effort goes into researching, studying things that are going to affect rules in a community the size of Oxford. And that money was spent and research was done. Some of you may have been involved in designing those rules. I think those rules were put together based on fact and research, and were put together for a specific reason. And I think that it's not wise to easily amend or change those particular rules to accommodate a variance, at least not one that would have potential impact like we've been discussing here tonight. With your permission, I would like very much to read a very short message from another neighbor and Oxford resident. In the real estate business, they're both business people and residents.
You got about 30 seconds left.
Okay, and in regards to this, the same variance, they simply say that Oxford Township was originally part of Oakland Township. It was separated and organized in 1837. There's some more history about the community, but I think the point they want to make is our family-oriented community, quaint. You know, we don't want to be a Detroit or a Las Vegas with all this electronic power in the sky. So they indicate the petition as described would not be only an eyesore, would draw unnecessary attention or establishment, but also would be considered as light pollution. This is brought to my attention by a well-known respected attorney in the area. Not to mention the traffic distraction, hazards, and potential crime. Light pollution is the presence of unwanted, inappropriate, or excessive artificial lighting. In a descriptive sense, and the term light pollution refers to the effects of any poorly implemented lighting during the day or at night, and it can be understood not only as a phenomenon resulting in a specific source or kind of pollution, but also as a contributor to the unwanted, I'm sorry, the print is bad, contributor to the wider collective impact of various sources of pollution. So certainly it's a large sign, lots of potential distraction. We've discussed that already. I would just like to respectfully request that you deny the variance based on the reasons you've heard here tonight and maintain the neighborhood family-like quality of our community in the manner that we have for many, many years.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Sir?
can we have a copy of the letter?
Absolutely, sorry.
Yes. Thank you.
McCord, 1305 Glass Lake Circle. My concern is that it's a very large sign, very visible, and a curve in a major part of M24. I, as a driver, find electronic signs very distracting, and I know personally I would find a sign in that area that size a distraction. I would find it a problem. And I don't think I'd be the only driver. Yeah, that's my only comment. It's a safety concern, and I hope you turn it down based on safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Joe Say. I'm the property owner directly north of Los Echoes, 1225 South Lapeer Road. And my appeal to you is slightly different because there's a history. On that particular site I'm talking about that I own, I was trying to rebuild a gas station for years. Came before the ZBA probably 6 times. We never could do it because of the size of the parcel. It was unfortunately that Bill showed up at every meeting to oppose anything I ever tried to do. And even to this extent of saying, well, we don't want a gas station because they pollute the ground, even though it's been a gas station since the 50s. So I find it ironic that Bill's over here asking for variances when he's not a good neighbor. And I'm saying this publicly because he's run off DTE, AT&T, made them run circles instead of working with them to do work. He sent invoices to engineers that are working on my current project for stepping on his property. He caused havoc when they did M24 with the contractor escapes my name, the contractor did M24 with the tree service. And at every turn, I don't know why, but Bill has been a bad neighbor. So, having said that, I don't want to be a bad neighbor. I don't see a problem with the sign, per se, as the other gentleman said. However, I think there needs to be, if it's going to be considered, there has to be some stipulations as far as how bright it could be, how often it changes, because it is distracting when they change every 15 seconds. So if you're going to consider it, I ask that you consider those things. My last big concern is I have a multi-million-dollar project going right on that property next to his. And I really don't want the bright lights and everything flashing in my project, in my parcel, my property for my customers. So, again, I'm pro-progress. I'm not going to be here and try to deny what he wants to do, but I just think it needs to be thought out carefully if you're going to consider approving it, and certain restrictions need to be put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing nobody else in the audience, I would say it's safe to close the public hearing at this point. Number 5, we'll go through building administrator's comments. We do have information from Carlisle Wortman that you all received. So let's move on to board member questions and comments. Does anybody have any questions for the petitioner?
I had a few questions, if you don't mind coming up to your podium.
Sure.
I heard there was a concern with the slope of the ground. Is the ground level at that sign, or is it?
Oh, sure.
Is there some constraints there for building a different sign, or what's the?
No, the
what's
highway.
slope there that we're
The
concerned
highway
about?
drops 6 feet.
From the highway to your
Yes.
base of your sign?
Yeah.
Okay, That's what you meant by your comment?
Right.
When was your sign originally constructed? Give me an estimate.
1990, 1988.
So since in
30 years.
late 80s, maybe?
Yes.
Early 90s?
Yes,
You've been manually putting letters up to sign to make
yes.
a great benefit to this community.
Well, thank you. Yes, I have.
And I look at it every morning, right?
It keeps you in shape.
Yeah. But now you have a safety concern.
Yeah.
So can you expand upon the safety concern now that you've been doing this for over, gosh, that's 30-some years, right? Maybe?
Sure.
So what's your concern now with safety?
Oh, we've always had a safety concern. We always wear the proper gear for slip and falls. When it sleets out at your house, it sleets on the catwalk and it sticks to that steel, and you have a half-inch of ice on everything, and it's like a little skating board. There's always been concerns, and we've always been very careful, and it takes time, and there have been days when we can't change it,
Sure.
and we can't fill requests. But now there is a new way. This digital thing hasn't been perfected for 30 years. It's become down, and the incandescent lamps are a thing of the past, and the LEDs, just like the hardware store, you can't buy incandescent lamps anymore. You have to buy LEDs. That's just a new way to do it.
So you would eliminate a person basically manually on the billboard itself
Yes.
at all times.
And more than that, the sign could be changed quickly for reasons that I couldn't even discover right now.
So there's no manual entry to the electronic
Correct.
board. There's no ladder to get up in there to change any LEDs or any of that sort of stuff, right?
They are all changed through the back. You would
you
take
would
out
have
a panel, and they are just like your LEDs at home last for, I don't know, 50,000 hours. These LEDs are very residual, just like that. They're resilient. You know, one thing about LEDs, and they're not all created equal. And forgive me for saying this is probably incorrect. Some LEDs, a lot of LEDs, most LEDs are made in Asia. Pick a country. They don't care about our government regulations. The sign that we're proposing will be made in America with American components that are all FCC compliant. Now, I know that you probably don't, like at the back of your phone or the back of your toaster or the back of anything that you buy appliance-wise, even your little time clock by your bed when it wakes you up in the morning, it says this clock or this unit complies with FCC rules, Act 503, whatever the act is. It's telling you that it's not going to emit all this radiation, interference, and a lot of other things. These signs that are being put up, and you'll see them, there are some very bad distracting signs. Perhaps the sign that Mr. McCord was talking about, the one that was really bright and scary, I believe they're out there, and they're made in Asia, and they don't have any rules. If you turn on your AM radio when you drive by one of those signs, the static will drive you out of the car because they don't care about the emitting of radiation and static. Well, this sign that we propose automatically, faster than a blink of an eye, will adjust the visual brightness of the sign based on the ambient light. For example, if I held up a lighter right now and lit in this room with all these lights, you would be able to barely see it. It would just be a small light. If you turn all the lights off in here and I held up a lighter, it would be huge. Everybody would see it and it would be bright. The sign does the same thing. During the noon o'clock hour when the sun is the brightest, it would be the brightest automatically through computers. And at the dusk or daylight, it would tone down because the ambient light outside should. And that sign, wherever Mr. McCord was talking about, I'm absolutely sure they don't have that feature. The Asian signs don't. So it automatically adjusts to the ambient. If we have a storm come through where it gets very dark out, the sign would get dim. I mean, that wasn't available 20 years ago, but it is now, if you buy a quality
Sure.
unit.
So back to the question, you
Yes.
will have maintenance on the sign that would require somebody to go up into the sign as you do today.
That would all be done by bucket truck.
So,
An aerial type unit, yes, sir.
understand. And we do have, like you said, we do have illumination standards here,
Yes,
and we also have time. You can't have it on certain parts of the day, which I haven't mentioned any of that.
Oh, yeah. In the application, you
Yeah.
made mention of that, but
Is that,
depending on which part of the ordinance you go through, some of them say it has to be certain hours a day. I was advised, candidly, by the Kelly law firm that because this was not a advertisement of the business on premises, that would not apply. But I thought we had gotten past that issue.
So the sign would be running 24/7.
yes.
In terms of the, Bill's a little modest. He's the one that's up there climbing around on that platform. And 30 years has passed, and he's getting a little.
in the packet, I received a proposed, and the current sign dimensions here.
Yes,
I heard some different dimensions tonight,
yes,
that include, the 14 by 48 current sign. I heard cutout letters. Didn't get a dimension on that, on the top of your sign, as well as on the bottom, a 3-foot by 40-foot strip, I guess. A total, of your current sign is 810 square feet, correct?
correct. You're
So it's
absolutely,
not the
yes.
672 that's in our packet.
672 is the exact sign face, but if you add all the ancillary other items, yeah, it's larger.
So the sign is 810,
Yes,
okay.
I don't know if
And
I
you're
answered.
proposing to reduce that to a 12 by 36, 432 feet.
Correct.
And in the sign, it says south face sign is 12 by 28, 336.
I'm sorry.
I'm talking about
And the north face proposed sign is
No, the
12
both
by
sides would be the
28,
same
336. So I'm a little bit confused on the dimensions that we have in our packet and what was
Yes.
discussed tonight. Maybe we can clarify that.
No,
What's the
I mean, you're asking for a reduction.
Oh, no, okay,
You're
the
asking
south
for a
side-
variance in the square footage, we gotta
Got
understand
it.
what the square footage is, right?
The south
What it
side is
today,
identical.
What it is south and north face proposed.
yep, the south side is 14 by 48 also currently.
Okay.
V-shaped sign. It has a 3-foot by 42-foot apron on the bottom that's used. It has the ability to put cutout letters above it, which a lot of advertisers don't want to have that feature, but it can do those things. Its wind load is geared for that.
That's the north side,
Correct.
That's south side.
south side, south.
It'd be
Northbound-
northbound
Yes,
reading,
Is that what
south
you're-
face, yes, yes.
Is it you're saying the north is the north sign and the south is the south. So when you're reading, going northbound, you're reading the south
Correct.
sign, correct? So what sign would that be?
That would be the south face of the sign, which is northbound reading. If you're in your car driving, you would see it going north.
Okay. And that's a 14 by 48
Yes. With a
with a 3
3-foot by 42-foot apron on it currently, yes. May I add one thing that there's a lot of rules and laws we have to comply with. Not only do we have to comply with local laws, we want to, the state highway has their own set of guidelines and rules. And they have very strict rules on digital signs. Somebody mentioned, one of the young ladies mentioned that maybe that other sign someday will become digital too and, cause more distraction. That's impossible. The state highway has an 1,800-foot limit. It cannot be another digital sign with 1,800 feet. Another billboard just can't. That's a half a mile. Or not half a mile, but it's a quarter mile. Just can't do it.
So then that south face sign is not going to be digital.
Can never be,
Can never be.
as far as the highway is concerned.
If this north face sign is,
Correct.
okay.
So let's make sure, what we're talking about this sign being two-sided, so it'll be doing northbound and southbound. But there are signs farther south that will not be affected. Those are the ones you say will not be converted at any time because of that 1,800-foot lineal foot restriction. So he's proposing this sign will will be digital on both sides.
There's two signs south of Drainer. One of them is staying the way they are, which is the southbound sign. The north sign is the one that's V-shaped with two sides to it right now that you're wanting to make digital, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Now, how far apart are those two signs?
520 feet, I think.
Okay. Because, yeah, they're, what, supposed to be 1,000?
1,800.
Oh, 1,800.
So this V-shaped north face and south face sign today has how many square foot total?
Today has 1,670 square feet. If you add the front side, back side to that one sign we're talking about, has 1,670 square feet today. That would be reduced to a total of 864, just about half.
And one question I had for the height, I know in the variance you were requesting it changed from 6 feet to 42, but in the drawing here it shows the bottom of the apron at 25 feet, 12 feet up for the new sign would be 37 feet.
Correct.
So you're proposing to cut the sign square footage almost in half,
Correct.
a little more than half, but you want the digital to be 100% of that.
Yes.
So that's on the north face and south face then? You're having an electronic, a total of 864 feet, that's what you're proposing?
Yes.
Square feet. You want-
Yeah, I guess your drawing is a little confusing in the packet, because the proposed north face says 336 square feet, and the south face says 336 square feet, that's 672, not 864. Did I add that wrong? 336 plus 336
The 336 was based on.
is 672, 12 by 28, right?
He's wanting 12 by 36.
As we indicated, those drawings were done at the request in order to try to comply with this 50% of the total coverage. So we're, that was at my direction from him.
All right, so they're all 12 by 36, 432 square feet each, which would be a total of 864.
Yes.
Correct.
And these, you said were built in the 80s and 90s?
Right.
Yes.
And those were permitted back then, and
Yes.
when did we change the seat? Susan, do you know when that was changed to C2?
No, I don't. I would say, would be a total guess, would be early 90s. But that's just a complete guess.
Because right now, billboards aren't allowed in C2, so this would have been before that.
Was it industrial?
I don't know.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, is there a reduction in the variance that you're considering? Would there be any reduction that you would consider? And not only for the maximum height of the sign, but also the maximum area? I'm trying to figure out what the hardship here is. And also any reduction that you would propose from what you currently have.
37, the height would not be 42, it'd be reduced to 37. The height?
So 6 feet to 37.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And is there a need to have that sign 100%? I mean, why, I'm trying to understand the hardship of a 50%. What that sign is allowed here in our township right now, and why you can't meet that 50%.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So the sign right now
Yes.
is the ordinance reads, and have an electronic board 50% of that sign. It's
That's where
pretty-
I'm confused. What is the 50% of? What the sign is currently?
No, the 50% is, like, originally, right now, your billboard is 14 by 48.
Yes.
Which means you could have a digital portion of that that's no more than 7 by 24.
Got it.
Or,
And then leave that board static or just white or something all around it? And the digital area would be digital.
yeah, where half of that board, no more than half that board could be digital.
Never seen that done, but I would have to think about that.
There's
If
quite a
you're
lot of
going
signs.
south on Baldwin, right there by the Starbucks,
Yes.
that digital sign
Yes.
is about a third of the overall sign. There's a digital portion and then there's static signs.
We also have other digital in the township that are 50% of the total square foot area on that sign.
Uh-huh.
That's maybe used for other advertisement, right? It could be a message board, it could be whatever you want.
That would
whatever
be
but
distracting.
It's only 50% we allow for electronic. So what's the need for the whole 100%?
Frankly, if it's a preference to keep that other 50%, as long as we have the size of requesting for the digital portion, if we want to add more board up there, it seems to me that that's kind of more distracting or more visibly a problem than to limit it to just the digital. But if your preference would be to have more board, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. We'll put your name up there.
No, I'm just trying to read, I'm reading
Yeah, I
the
understand.
maximum area of an electronic message board sign shall be considered part of a wall or freestanding sign and shall not exceed 50% of the total sign area.
Yeah, I understand.
That's pretty clear. To me, I don't understand why you need a electronic board 100% of your sign. And so I'm asking you, can you explain that?
Our only thought was that didn't seem to make a lot of sense to have a static portion so up there.
I see, okay.
And it was our thought that would be better suited to reduce the whole size of it down to just the portion that was digital.
Yes.
And so it was a matter of our thoughts that it would be more aesthetic, more compliant with the general idea of reducing the size of the sign. But certainly if there's a thought that we could go ahead and keep the rest of the sign up there, we don't have a problem with that.
Any more questions before we go through the finding of facts?
I guess I have one about the time.
Sure.
So as I read here in Article 9, you explain that you asked for a waiver on the 10 o'clock curfew?
Yes.
Okay. And that was because it wasn't advertising for a business?
We had in our application included a request that portion, that we have a variance from that requirement. I was ultimately advised that wasn't necessary. So, my understanding was that it was based on a determination that because we were not advertising a business on the premises, that didn't apply. That was not my.
So I guess just my understanding of that portion of that article is just, so it wasn't a nuisance to any of the surrounding or adjacent residential areas.
There isn't any, and he owns the property.
I understand that, I know what
Inside.
adjacent means, but I think in consideration, we do have house or residential areas that are within view of that.
What we have behind this golf course. So there's no residences behind the property.
I'm familiar with the area and what's around there, so.
Okay.
There's also louvers manufactured into these faces where the ambient light does not shed to the neighbors. So you only, when you're in your car, you'll be able to see it fine, but when you drive by it, you should not be
It's kind
able
of
to.
a head-on, you can see.
Yeah,
it.
right. Yeah, it's directional louvers that don't allow you to spread light into an apartment complex or whatever you would think that it would do that. No, it's much better than 20 years ago.
So the sign's currently angled towards the residents across M24, both on the south face and the north face.
No, they're angled towards the highway. The 15-foot V, yeah.
Okay, so they're angled toward the highway in your notes.
Correct.
And what you're saying is that there will be no distraction to the surrounding neighborhood across, or businesses across the highway. Is that what you're saying? And in your current proposed change to the sign, you're going to keep the same angles, correct?
Correct. Same angles.
And there's louvers that you can use to try to...
No, they manufactured right into it to keep it focused in the direction you want it to be read, rather than to use the shotgun approach and just shove it outwards. It doesn't do that.
One last question I have. The aesthetics of this thing, is this just a box of lights, or has it got some aesthetics to it? Like the one up there that's up there presently in the billboard, it has character. It does have the hometown feel to it and stuff, but this one that you proposing, what kind of, I guess, I don't know if that really applies, if it can be considered, but a lot of people look at that sign and just curious.
I don't know what you're asking. Well, I think, personally, I think it's gonna look a lot better. The versatility will trump it still can look in a good character. If the layouts and designs are nice, it still can look pleasant and very, it can fit.
Thank you.
Are we allowed to ask one question?
Not up to me.
I know. Yeah.
Sure.
As the audience, are we allowed to ask one question?
I'm sorry?
As the audience out here, are we allowed to ask one question?
We've already closed that,
Okay.
that part of the meeting.
Even regarding clarification,
Yeah, go ahead quickly.
well, you had a question, so you can go ahead.
Yes, sir.
The sign I referred to in Pennsylvania, they cured the problem. I think the state police got after them because there've been too many accidents. But they cured the problem simply by fading things in and out. So there was not a sudden change from light to dark to
Mr. Chair?
bright to light
Okay.
and so on.
All comments need to come.
Yeah, those comments need to come up here for clarification.
Oops, Sorry.
No, it's okay.
This is just a comment that had not been brought up. The problem that I have referred to in Pennsylvania, I think it all started because the state police got after him because of the number of accidents they had in this section of road, probably because of the sign. But they solved the problem by fading the sign in and out. The real problem was that the light changed so rapidly from dark to bright and back and forth and so on. And they fixed it by simply fading things in and out. And since it's going to be that sort of a sign with the digital sign, I'm sure it can be programmed that way.
Sure.
So anyway, that's all.
And my question had to do with clarification on the sign itself.
Okay.
Right now, if I understand, there's a V-shaped sign. You got a billboard facing south and one facing north. The one facing south is changeable. That's where you climb up and make those changes. The one facing south is fixed, one fixed message that's there all the time. Is that correct?
Yeah, we call it static. One is static.
Would we still have two faces? Is there two signs or just one sign with two faces, front and back?
I
In
think
other
they
words, you're
consider
going to
it
have a
one
digital
sign.
message facing south and another digital message facing north.
Yeah, we've kind of already clarified that. There's gonna be, it's a V-shaped sign now.
Okay?
The one side, it stays. It's like a poster on there. The other side is the one he changes. They're both, if
Understood.
approved, gonna have digital.
And the new one, there will be two
Same
digital.
shape, nothing's changing with that.
My original understanding, there was one digital sign
There's two.
and a fixed one facing the other direction. Now there's two digital signs,
In the same
which
seat.
simply takes my disagreement with the plan to make that variance. I think we're well served with what we have there. Safety, it's been safe all the 30 years it's been there. Not any longer all of a sudden, that's a concern for me.
Okay.
And if we had two digital signs, one south and one north, we have two distractions, whereas now we only had one.
Okay.
So I'm doubling my objection.
Thank you. Okay,
Can I ask a question?
we've really already passed that. Yeah, go ahead.
No objections on
Regarding the safety of the sign changer, and I understand that that is a concern, but cannot someone be hired to place the letters up there for Mr. Ratzko? And maybe even, excuse me, a younger person or a more agile person? Or, but we're talking about one person who's changing letters manually versus the sign being near an intersection of 40,000 drivers that potentially are distracted. Do not those 40,000 drivers possibly outweigh the safety, their safety, outweigh the safety of one sign changer? We are, the sign is adjacent to a lake area, and so, you know, I really hope that you would consider the electronic messaging and atmosphere that produces next to a vacation, family-oriented resort type lake area. What do we want to project to the passers-by, the drivers-by in our community? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any more board member questions before we go through the finding of fact? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will go through the finding of facts, section 17.8, variances, C, standards. First one is strict compliance with restrictions governing area, setback, frontage, height, bulk, density, or other non-use matters will unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or will render the ordinance conformity unnecessarily burdensome. What are your thoughts on, does that apply or not apply? Everybody's speak one.
Well, strict compliance with the restrictions of governing the area, right, we're talking about, and as well as height, right?
Correct.
And our height is 6 feet, 50%.
Correct. And they're requesting to go from 6 to 37, and from 50% to 100%.
And they're also requesting 24 hours a day.
Technically, that's not in here. That's not one of the variances. So strict compliance with restrictions governing area, setback, frontage, height, bulk, density, or other non-use matters will unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or will render the ordinance conformity unnecessarily burdensome. I don't think it will prevent the owner from using the property.
No.
Burdensome, I think, would be the key question.
It's been being done for how many years now?
So,
Oh, it would be practically difficult for him to, or for the petitioner to comply with that, with our ordinance, based on what he wants, but,
is it unreasonable?
is it unreasonable, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't think that applies.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Number 2, the variance will do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to other property owners.
Yeah, it'll do a substantial justice to the applicant if we grant the variance, for sure.
I don't think it really do anything for,
It may also set a precedence within the other portions of the township as well, that we haven't seen yet, that may be coming in the future.
a lesser variance than requested will not give substantial relief to the applicant and will not be more consistent with justice to other property owners.
I don't think that applies either. Lesser variance. Right now, we're at 50%, he wants 100. That's where he stands, 100%. I don't think it applies.
Okay. Any other thoughts or? Okay. Number 4, the need for the variance is due to the unique circumstances peculiar to the property and not generally applicable in the area or to other property owners in the same zoning district. I don't think this really applies because this is C2 and billboards are not allowed in C2, so none of the other property owners could put up a billboard.
Yes, that wouldn't apply. I agree.
Number 5, the problem and resulting need for the variance has not been self-created by the applicant and/or the applicant's predecessor.
Well, I don't think that applies either. It's self-created by the applicant and or the applicant's predecessors.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, so we have gone through the finding of facts. We are at a point if somebody would like to make a motion for or against the variance.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
In case 23 ZBA 004, Etzkowski, 1245 South Lapeer Road, P0435179001. I would, to increase the maximum permitted height of the sign from 6 feet to 42 feet, and to increase the maximum area of the electronic message sign from 50% to 100%. I say we deny the petitioner's application based on our findings and facts and our documents within the proposed notification that we have in front of us.
Just for clarification, it would be 37 feet, correct?
Oh, 37 feet, I'm sorry. 6 feet to 37 feet.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. With that, can we have a roll call vote?
Racer?
Deny.
Yes. Are you in favor of the motion to deny?
I'm in favor to deny, yes.
Magley?
Yes.
Walters?
Yeah.
Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Any final board member comments? Seeing none.
Well, it's going to be 70 degrees all week, so get your first time to wear a short sleeve shirt. So it's kind of nice to see the spring here, so hope everybody enjoys the flowers and the springtime here.
Any last minute or questions, comments? All right. We have a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 20:09.